So let's dive in. Okay, we are on where you've come from, and in parentheses, we are going to be talking about limiting beliefs. Okay, so if you've never heard of limiting beliefs, I want to kind of just give you a little bit of synopsis about kind of what these are, what they mean, how they got here, and then we'll talk a little bit about how to identify them and also how to run them over and smash them so that 2022 can be your year. So let's talk about first just what a limiting belief is. What does that mean? And what am I meaning when I say limiting beliefs? We all have limiting beliefs. It doesn't matter where we come from, what age, race, background we are. All of us have them, okay? So what a limiting belief is, it's a state of mind or belief that you think limits you in some way. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's take pole, for example. I'll never be strong enough to do that trick. Oh, I'll never be graceful enough to dance that way. At your job, it could be, I'm never going to be smart enough to get a promotion like that person did. Let's say in family, oh, I could never be strong as a mother like my friend is, or I'll never be able to have to be a mom like that. So those are negative statements that we say out loud, or we say and hear. See how this now all of a sudden rolls back into like creating a strong mindset. So those limiting beliefs those are just some examples, but basically what happens is it now creates this negative state of mind, and see how it limits you. So if I'm saying I'm never going to be strong enough to do that trick, or I'll never be a good enough woman to be a mother, or nobody's ever going to love me enough, I'll never get married. If we say those things, even if we're thinking those things, even if we're not saying them out loud, what happens is it creates the ceiling. So in order for us to get through that ceiling, in order for us to be happily married, be in a great relationship, have a great job, get that promotion, get that pole trick, dance like no one's watching, kind of like let go almost and break through that ceiling, we have to then work on our mindset, but we also have to work on smashing these, which is that ceiling created by our limiting beliefs. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So before we can smash them, we have to understand what it is. So that just gives you a little bit of background about what these things are. So let's talk about how these limiting beliefs can kind of keep you in a negative state of mind and really keeping you away from the life that you desire to live. I mean, that's really the end game that we want, is we want that life that we picture in our mind, that we dream of. We can all have it. So we've got to get rid of this ceiling. We've got to get rid of these limiting beliefs in order to move forward. So let's talk about some backgrounds about these beliefs. Know your history. My limiting beliefs can be different than your limiting beliefs. Let's talk about family beliefs. We all grew up in a different family. So if any of you have gotten married, you get married, and some of you come from different backgrounds, right? I love reading the stories of like how opposites attract. I was just reading a story the other day I guess it was on Yahoo News, but it was really cute because it was this couple that came together, and it was like he throws everything away and she like saves everything. And it just kind of talked about like how they have opposites of that, because he came from a lot of money growing up and she came from like nothing growing up, and then they came together. So, he'll eat some of his meal and then throw it away. And then she'll be like, we could donate this to somebody, or we could walk outside, or we could give it to an animal. And he might throw away something if there's like 2 trash bags left, and she'll find a use for those 2 trash bags because she could never throw anything away. Everything always counted for her growing up. So those are part of kind of like what shape us and our limiting beliefs. So think about your family. Think about how you grew up. Know your history. So for example, Alexander growing up, his father and I, we are very good friends. We parent very well together. And growing up, it was interesting to see the dynamic of him go to school because his parents had never been together. So for him, that was normal, right? I mean, it was just like, oh, when I grow up, I'll be friends with somebody and I'll have a kid, and that's what will happen, right? Well, then he goes, let's say he might go to church and we'll hear, oh, when people get married, they have a child. And then he would say to me, Mom, I don't get it, because somebody said this, but I thought you have a child when you're really good friends. I remember him saying that to me. And then he would go to school and he would see parents together and he would go, oh, that's weird. Your parents are married. What? So it was like, just like not undoing, but just realizing that he came from a different world than a lot of other people did. I mean, literally, he would look at pictures at his dad's, and I was in the picture album, and he would say to his dad, how do you know my mom? Like, there was just no correlation of like, we were in love, we had a child, we broke up because he was a baby. So he just grew up thinking that's how things were. So it was really like understanding, like, okay, like that was his history, you know, that was his understanding, not of a shape in a way that a belief shaped him. So he will forever be influenced by that. And what will you forever be influenced by? Maybe you grew up in a family that said to you, if you don't go to church on Sundays, God is going to be mad at you. And maybe your entire life, that is what you felt. So you had this fear in you that you had to go to church on Sundays or you were going to be punished. Maybe maybe as you were growing up, your family instilled in you, or people that you respected, whoever raised you, suggested to you that you could never, ever, ever talk back to authority, that you always had to respect them. So that became something that shaped you into, you could be taken advantage of by authority because you have in your mind a belief system that says, I can't ever say anything. I can't ever question anything. I can't ever put pressure here. So you could end up in a situation where you might be taken advantage by authority, right? So understand. So number one, we've got know your history. Understand where you come from. So I want you to spend some time today or tomorrow, whenever you watch this video, I want you to spend some time thinking about that, starting with your family beliefs and how that has shaped you. Let's talk about education. Maybe the people as you grew up, or even right now, education always shapes us. So I want you to think about the people that you mainly learned from in your life thus far. All of us were being educated by whoever raised us, right? We're probably being educated by our spouse or significant other, by some coworkers. And I want you to make sure that that information or that education, you're getting from people that you respect. Okay, so maybe there are some of us that watch this video and we actually don't respect the way that we were raised. We don't respect some of those opinions and beliefs that were really put on us. Then I just want you to be aware. I want you to understand, and I want you to think where that came from. And now I want you to focus on only making sure you're getting education from people that you respect. And when I say education, it could be anything. It could be, you know, personal growth. It could be education about your job. It could be how, you know, to be the best mother you can possibly be, how to be a great friend. So think about those conversations that you're having. And this kind of ties back into our yesterday's video that we did. And when I talked about who are the 5 people that you hang around, think about this when you think about education and how that's shaping you. And then let's talk about experiences. Okay, all of us draw conclusions after experiences that we have. And yowzers, we draw really big ones if it was a really difficult experience, or if it was a long, rough, hard experience, we will draw our own conclusions. But here's what I want you to remember about this. This is so important. I want you to remember that those conclusions are temporary. Here's what I mean. You go through a divorce and your conclusions are, nobody will ever love me. He never loved me. He or she never loved me. I knew that I was never good enough. You're bitter. I hate this person. Okay. I wish I would have never gone through this experience. So you have these conclusions of, I knew I should have never gotten married. I knew back then I should have never gotten married. Okay. But here's what I need you to do with these experiences. I need you to pull those conclusions, and I need you to almost imagine that you're just like laying them out on the table. And then I want you to read them. I want you to write it down, and I want you to read them. Let's take one. Let's say you go through an end of a relationship, and it's, I knew I should have never done this. It was a bad decision. I hate this person. Okay, what is true about that? Did you learn something from this experience? You probably did, because it's in the valleys and the hardships that we grow. we typically don't grow when we're in a peak in life. It's just not how it works. So chances are you're coming out of this a stronger person, even though it can be hard to look at that. Do you see how that can become temporary, and our real conclusion and the real kind of like conclusion from what happened can be turned into, like, here's limiting belief, can be turned into a strong and hefty and positive belief that we can take with us moving forward. So if you need to lay some things down this week, today, tomorrow, whenever you're watching this, lay some things down. And what I want you to do is I want you to like pull truth from each limiting belief that you have. Okay. So you're going to know your history. Think about your family beliefs, think about education, think about things that have shaped you, lay some things down. And if you can kind of imagine, like putting spaghetti noodles on the table, or my children right now are eating macaroni shapes. And imagine like picking out, like there's a unicorn shape, a star shape, and a rainbow shape. Imagine picking out all the rainbows. As I lay the macaroni out, I'm going to pick out all the rainbows, and I'm going to take those rainbows with me, and I'm going to take that as my conclusion or belief moving forward. So lay out your limiting beliefs, know your history of where that comes from, pull out truth, and really think about how you're going to do that. So that's going to bring us to this next number 2, which is be aware of how your history has shaped you. Okay, so be aware and understand where you come from. I come from a family of yellers. When I first became a mother and when I first got married, any relationship really that I have really ever been in, I yelled. To me, it was normal. I come from a family of 4 children. To this day, my family still yells, and it's literally like a shouting match for you to try to be heard, or to try to get your words in, or to try to be respected, or to try to be understood. That's all I ever knew. So I came into marriage thinking, well, if I need to get my point across, I yell, I be stern. I actually came into being a boss and being a business owner thinking that same exact thing. I found out very quickly that that's not what people wanted to hear from me. And I found out the hard way, and that's okay. But I have to now realize that is something that has shaped me. Okay. That limiting belief of the only way I can get my point across is if I yell. Well, we all know that that's not true. And I now know, okay, that has shaped me. That is part of who I am. I now have to assess that. I had to lay it on the table. I had to pull the truth from that of like, that is not true. That doesn't make people feel good. It hurts their feelings. It intimidates people. And it's not okay to treat people that way. I don't want somebody to yell at me. I hated it when my parents yelled at me. I still don't like it when my family yells. And when they do now, I actually remove myself from the situation. I will go outside, I might leave, I will remove my children, and I will then actually talk to my children, not so much my toddler, but to Alexander, and say, hey, just so you know, we don't talk to each other that way. If I catch myself yelling as a mother right now, I will apologize to Alexander. I will straight up say, you know what, I lost my temper. It's not an okay way to treat you, and I'm sorry that I did that. The only reason I got to that point is because I was able to assess and know my history, know how it shaped me, but then assess. And so now I'm so consciously aware when it happens and when it comes up. I will have times where I will feel, I want to yell, I want to get mad. And now if I have that feeling, maybe, as a boss, I will call somebody first and I will get it out. And I will ask people that I respect and say, tell me if I'm overreacting, tell me I need to calm down, hold me accountable. And those people will. And they will say things to me like, I understand where you're coming from. What about looking at it this way? And I'll say, you're right. And I'll be able to see the other side. You know what I mean? Instead of being so reactive, which is what I've just always been used to. So think about that. Know how things have shaped you. And then, let's talk about how to assess them and how do we figure all of this out. that's the way that we will assess them. So knowing your history and understanding how it's shaped you is your way to assess. And I'm gonna tell you something that's so important. When you start assessing these, you guys, you become like hypersensitive. I mean, when I started assessing ways and things I pulled from my mom and dad, healthy and unhealthy, the unhealthy things was like, I had to really limit my time to be around my family. So when I kind of had like these aha moments, when I went to therapy for a lot of years for this, I had these aha moments of, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same, I'm doing the same thing that my father did to me. Yeah, don't think, I mean, my parents are like very loving parents. I'm just saying, okay. What I pulled unhealthy from them, from my dad, was a very strong personality, intimidating other, you know, kind of those things that I was mentioning. And I said to myself, oh my goodness, I'm doing that with my child. I'm pulling these limiting beliefs and putting them on my kid. And I'm yelling like my mom, and I'm being defensive, you know, like my mom, and I'm putting that on my son, and I don't want to do that. And that is the way that you start to assess. And when you do that, be aware that you may be really hypersensitive. So you're going to start out being consciously unconscious. Okay. What I mean by that is you're going to be aware that you're making all these mistakes. I don't want to call them mistakes, but you're going to be aware that you have all these limiting beliefs, and you'll hear somebody say something and go, ooh, okay. Like you'll start to go, oh yeah. Okay. This is where I got this. This is why I believe this. You're having a conversation with a friend or your significant other, and you'll start to go, huh, because you'll start to think of something. They're talking about something different. You might start to get defensive, and then you go, okay, hang on a second. I'm going to assess why I'm getting defensive right now. I'm going to assess why I think something different. How can I not believe what this person says when they say, you can do anything you set your mind to? And I'm in my head, I'm thinking, no, I can't. I can only do the job that I have, and I can only live in this house that I can have. What do you mean I can do anything I set my mind to? No, I can't. Why do they believe that? And why do you believe that? So it's assessing that. The only way to do that is writing down, assess, pull the truth, understand, and know that you will start consciously unconscious. Okay. Then you, by the end, you will move into doing this and altering your beliefs to positive beliefs, consciously unconscious. So what I mean by that is that unconsciously conscious. Okay. So by the end of this, you won't have to think about how to have a positive belief system. You will unconsciously just automatically have that positive belief system. But by starting by starting kind of like in that unconsciously piece and space in your life, it's like you don't realize it, and you're almost going to feel like this popcorn effect, kind of like coming through and being so aware. Write things down, keep a journal, write notes by these limiting beliefs that you write down. Okay. And I'm telling you, we talked about the onion and the layers or yesterday. This is going to be that. It's going to take time. You can't run 35 years of your life thinking one thing and then all of a sudden undo that in 2 months. It's not going to happen. I promise you, I tried. And if there's anybody that wants to do things in a really fast manner, it's this guy right here, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't go fast. You've got to take your time, and you've got to put in the work, and you've got to do these things that I'm saying. Okay. Okay. So let's go to number 3. And this last one, it says, believe. That's our fill in the word. Believe that you can change the pattern and take the steps to do so. Okay. So I want you to think about this. The majority, all of us are born with a clean slate, right? And the people in our lives, as we start to grow, they start to influence us in a way that shape us. Our lives are not over. If they shaped us before, we can now insert an input, encouraging people, positive people. We can now change our thinking. It can be changed. We tend to think as humans, and especially as women, well, this is it. This is all I'm ever going to have. This is all what life has for me. And this is it. I just need to settle. You don't. If this is not where you want to be, you can break these. And I'm telling you this from personal experience. I just gave you a tiny, tiny, tiny synopsis of my background of one tiny thing that I went through. There's so much more I want to share with you, but we only have a half hour to meet together. So I'm going to share more of that with you as we go through the small group coaching sessions in the next 8 weeks. But I want you to understand that you can change this. You can put new people in your life. You can have new encouraging words said to you that have never been said to you before, and you can do the work and assess these beliefs and change the way that you think, which will then change your mindset, which will then change and literally alter the direction of your life, if that is what you want to do. Now, that doesn't mean that you go, oh my gosh, Amy, well, I'm not, I don't want this, like, I don't want to be wealthy and I don't want all this. And okay, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. If all you want right now is to update your mindset into a positive mindset, that's all you focus on. If all you want is to go, you know what, I want a raise at my job, and I want my kids to not have to share a room, so maybe want a little upgrade of my house. You can do that. Don't limit yourself to believe that you can't. You can change these beliefs. So I want you to believe that. If you don't have an affirmation that says something along these lines, I want you to add one today. Okay. So as we wrap up here, this is how we are smashing these beliefs. So we are writing everything down. Here's your homework. I want you to write down your beliefs. I want you to think about your family, think about education, think about experiences that have shaped you, and write down 5 limiting beliefs that you have in your life right now that you want to smash. Okay, write down 5 of those beliefs. I want you to go through those 5 beliefs, and I want you to pull out truth from each one of those. Okay, what is the truth in that belief that you are saying? Is there any? Maybe there's none. There could be nothing. There could be no truth in there at all. And what you're saying to yourself is a total, complete lie. Meaning, when I got divorced, I knew nobody would ever love me. Okay, total lie. Total lie. There's a million people that love me. Total lie that I was telling myself for a very long time. Had to smash it. All right. So pull out the truth if there is any. And I want you to focus on maybe circling those limiting beliefs. Circle the ones that you're being challenged on. Okay. Maybe there's a couple within those 5 that you're feeling really challenged. Like, yeah, I'm really challenging myself to dig into these couple, or 3 or 1 or whatever that might look like. Okay. And I want you to focus on these few things as you walk through this week. So as we begin to smash these limiting beliefs, I want you to do 3 things. 1, I want you to find some space to declutter. Okay, it doesn't have to be your whole house. Trust me, I have a toddler. I live in a small condo. I know that space and trying to declutter, sometimes you're just like, literally, all I have is my closet. That's okay. Clear your socks away. Find a space that you can declutter, that you can sit. You don't have to have some like fancy office. You can see behind me. I don't have some sort of fancy office I'm coming from and talking to you guys to, but declutter a space so that when you sit there and you write these down and you think about this stuff and you go through your affirmations, it's a space where you can think clearly. If you have stuff everywhere, it's going to be very difficult for you visually to look at that stuff and then to clear your mind to think in a clear manner for you to be able to smash these. Okay. So I want you to declutter. Number 2 is that I want you to lose the control. We're going to talk about this more in the next 8 weeks. Okay. In a lot more detail. I want you to think about anything that you need to lose control over. For me, that was my business. And you want to know what did it for me? COVID. Okay. I learned how to lose holding on so much control to my business and something that I thought was my true identity. Instead, I had to dig in, I had to turn inward, I had to die to self, and I had to understand that Amy doesn't equal Flirt Fitness. Amy equals what I say Amy equals. It doesn't have to be this one thing. It doesn't have to be what I heard for nine years. It's like, I thought that was my only thing. I thought that was my only purpose. Come to find out, it's not, and it's not yours either. Okay. So think about if there's anything that's challenging you, meaning, are you holding on too tight to something? Do you need to lose control? We'll talk about that more over the 8 weeks. And that last piece, think about dying to self. This is like so opposite of what our society tells us to do. It tells our society is like, think about yourself, put yourself first, do all these things. I'm telling you guys, if you do that, there's a time and a place to do it. If that's all you do, you will lose some really beautiful things in life. If you can just do it a little bit, I promise you, you will find grace for others. You will find peace. You will find joy. And if you can put others first, instead of only focusing on yourself all of the time, you will start to see new things. Okay, that doesn't mean like, don't ever do any self-care, don't ever go get them. Okay, I'm not saying that. So there is some sort of middle ground where I'm coming from with this, okay? But you'll also be open-minded. It'll clear your mind to really be open-minded to a path that is going to be so beautiful for you, okay? Declutter, lose the control, think about maybe focusing on what can you give and how can you give in a way that is selfless, so that opens your mind to grace, being open-minded and seeing the direct, clear path that is in front of you.